Hello, beautiful people. How you doing? Auntie Gadlu here. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear the background noise of my camera. It's just focusing because I move a lot. Focus on me. I wanted to get on here and talk about how I learned 5 different languages. Oi, tudo bem? E aí, cara? Tudo certinho? Muito bom, beleza? What's another one? Salam demenachu amarinya uma bedem benomachlo manim. Endere amarinya ainchidem. Ishi. Curiosidad. Oh my gosh. Curiosidad. I hope that's the word. No es muy bien. No puedo hablar muy bien en español. Aussi, je ne peux pas français très bien, mais je pratiquais beaucoup. I love, like, I don't know, I love phrases where you're like, c'est pas possible. Oh, époustouflant. Oh, c'est trop difficile. Now, I personally like to learn languages where either I've been to the country for a long period of time, or I have a lot of friends who speak that language. Like, for example, obviously, okay, both my parents are Ethiopian, so I had no choice to learn Amharic. Like, that was a given. But when it came to Spanish, obviously, because I live in the United States, Spanish is a really common language to learn, so that was useful. And then English. I also learned, I learned Portuguese, obviously, because I said a million times studied abroad there, and I have the cliche flag right behind me. Look, don't hate. People who studied abroad get it. They understand the level of love that you have for the country, especially if you had a good time. They understand the level of love you have for that country. And then French, well, I was Canadian. I know French Canadian is disgusting to French people, but I had initially learned a lot of French, but I lost it like all when I started learning Spanish. Or not lost it all, because that's also fake. It's just really difficult for me to get back into the French. Also love the fact that a lot of countries in Africa speak French, unfortunately, because of colonization. But it's, if anything, I would love to go to like Côte d'Ivoire or like Senegal and speak to the people in French, or Madagascar. They speak French there, and so French is a useful language in that sense because I can travel to a lot of countries, and that's the language that they speak. But anyways, I wanted to get on here and explain the one thing that I did to learn these languages. Granted, I do not speak all 5 fluently. I want to put that out there because a lot of people are like, I'm a polyglot. And yes, if you do speak more than one language, or more than I think 2 languages or 3, you're a polyglot. It's seldom that you find people that speak it fluently, so I can hold a conversation in every single one of those languages. That's where I consider myself to be someone who can speak it. With certain languages like French, because I'm just learning it right now, I can't speak it super smoothly, but when it comes to Portuguese, ain't nobody tell me nothing. Amasa or omasa? Wait. Because I even know the gíria. I know the gíria. Eita, tudo bem? Let me stop acting a fool. The one thing that I did to learn these languages is just understanding the difference between active and passive learning. Passive learning is reading and listening. So those are things that are really good when you're starting off with a language because it gets you used to the sound and the pronunciation. But you don't want to get stuck in the passive learning because you're not really forcing yourself to understand and speak the language. So when it comes to active learning, you do things like speaking and writing. Now those things force you to remember the words that you know and use them in context. So you recognize certain things when you're listening and reading. I think most people listen and watch shows when they're trying to learn a language, but I would not recommend that's the only way that you should learn a language. Every time a sentence is said to you, or said to me at least, I'll repeat it in Portuguese and then envision a situation where, for example, if it's like, I'm hungry, estou com fome, I'll be like, I'll pretend I'm like at a restaurant and I'll be like, estou com fome, because then I have like a situation to connect it with And I think it makes the language so much more fun to learn and also applicable. So you don't have just like a bunch of random phrases in your head that you don't know when to exactly use. So that's just a tip when it comes to like the active learning part of it. So yeah, one thing that you really just want to make sure you recognize is the difference between active learning and passive learning. Although they're both really, really important when you're learning a language, too many people focus on the passive learning part of it. So like watching shows, or there's even this thing that's like, while you're sleeping, listen to Italian and like you'll learn how to speak it. I'm like, huh? Y'all are lying to these poor people who just want to learn a language. It's okay to mess up. Like, you see, I have no shame in messing up because that's how you learn. And also your brain, we're people, so we learn from our mistakes. So my brain will, once I get past that like brick wall of the fear of making a mistake, I really cannot care. I know when I was studying abroad, I looked stupid. Eu posso pagar em crédito? Crédito, eu acho que é muito bom. Like, I look like a fool, but because I was more curious than fearful, I genuinely, I know right now it doesn't seem like it. How do you say the apple in Portuguese? But I genuinely learned a lot of the language and spoke, like, I had like a full-on day with someone who only spoke Portuguese with me, and we understood each other completely. I'm really talkative, so I hated that language barrier, but also it just pushed me to want to learn the language even more. And even in my talkativeness, I was able to maintain an entire day of speaking only Portuguese. Water break, water break. I know this video is the one thing, but this is the second thing. Consistency is so important when learning a language. The more you see it, the more your brain sees it, the easier it gets. The more you get accustomed to the language. So you really genuinely can learn. I could learn Chinese if I wanted to. The reason I learned these languages also is just because I love to connect with people. Also slightly on the off chance that like I have to help someone who doesn't speak English in America. Like on the off chance that they speak French, Spanish, or like Portuguese and they don't speak English, I would love to be like, oh yeah, let me help you. Oh, that would be amazing. But yeah, I'm rambling, so I'm gonna cut myself off there. This is gonna be fun to edit. But the one thing that I'd want you to take away from this is understanding that language learning is not just passive learning. Like, you can't just watch episodes of whatever language you're trying to learn and expect you can't expect to be good at the language just based off of that. Also, don't get really hung up on like the nitpicky stuff. I'm very much someone who's like, I know my grammar is not perfect, but if you understand me, then we're good. You want to make sure that you're writing, reading. I know writing is difficult because you have to find someone that can correct you if you're wrong. But what you can also do is like write a story, like a paragraph in the language once you get comfortable, and then just Google Translate it. I know Google Translate isn't the most accurate when it comes to translations, but it's the best thing if you don't have someone who speaks the language near you. On Duolingo, there are stories, and so Duolingo, sponsor your girl. I'm right here. Little Ethiopian black girl. It looked great, I'm just saying. There's also an app called Hello Talk. Damn, somebody sponsor me. Hello Talk is like an app that you can talk to people from the country of where that language is spoken. So I remember I used to do that right when I hopped out of Brazil. I used to do that with people from Brazil so that I wouldn't lose it. I got off of it because it was really overwhelming, the amount of people that were reaching out to me. But it's like an exchange, so you like teach each other. So I was like teaching English while they were teaching me Portuguese. It's really cool because you get to meet super awesome people. So anyways, I know I rambled a lot. I'm sorry, I just can't help it. Anything that you want to tell me, just let me know in the comments because I read them. All my 13 subscribers. I read them and I appreciate you. Subscribe if you want more, to see more of me. I'll be trying to be consistent. Look, I'm a student, okay? I'm a student, I run a business. I got stuff that I gotta do, so I may not be as consistent as I'd like to be, but I will try. I promise, I will try. But I hope y'all have a blessed rest of your day, night, evening, morning, and ciao, salut, ciao, and goodbye.